Granny, you sure made a mess of our family Christmas. You absolutely ruined everything.
Well, I tell you what, Joe. Anytime something happens, you're always blaming me.
Well, Granny, anytime something happens, it always seems to be you, or Grandpa, or the both of you.
Well, I'm always getting it from you. Well, Granny, you ruined the town Christmas parade.
'Cause you did?
Well, Granny, you ruined the family Christmas.
You did.
Well, Granny, you introduced a new, highly resistant strain of E. coli into the food supply chain.
Wait, now, what was that last one you just said there, Granny?
It's nothing, Joe. Besides, it's all a matter of perspective. Who are you going to believe? Me or the employees they found tied up and gagged in the refrigeration unit?
Well, if anybody's watching our show, we'll just let them decide. It all started on Thanksgiving last year. Now, nothing really happened except our Uncle Molasses came to visit us. And he brought somebody there with him. Now, Granny thought it was his brand new wife, and that was really all about that it was.
Yeah.
Well, not too long after that, Granny goes to the hair salon. It was probably a few days later. And she was asking the ladies what you get for a newlywed couple. And one of them suggested called a spicy pillow package. Now, I don't really know what those items are or what they're used for. But there were some items in there that are for newlyweds that they get to mess with or whatever for a few nights. I guess trying to be right. I don't really know. I don't know anything about that kind of stuff. But that's what Granny got him for his Christmas present. Isn't that right, Granny?
Yes.
Well, here comes Christmas time and Uncle Molasses comes back with what Granny thinks is his new wife, and she gives it to him. Now, Uncle Molasses probably had about a full bottle of red wine because he likes it, so he's feeling pretty good. And he takes a look at this package and he wonders what it's for. And old Granny tells him it's for him and his new wife. And he's asking, what new wife? And she tells him there. And they get into an argument because that wasn't his new wife, was it, Granny? Who was it that came with Uncle Molasses?
His seeing eye dog.
That's right, that was his seeing eye dog. You see, Uncle Molasses can't really see very well. It's like looking through little holes of Swiss cheese, so that's why he has himself a seeing eye dog. Now, I don't know how Granny thought that that was a wife or anything, but that's what Granny said, right? That's what you thought.
Look, Joe, in my defense, have you looked at people recently? It's hard to tell the difference between them and a dog.
Well, needless to say, Granny went outside. She got sick and tired of listening to Uncle Molasses complain. And so she goes up to Grandpa, who has himself a brand new catapult and he's ready to test it out. He's ready to launch something in his catapult. Well, somebody about that time comes up and they're ready to rob our house. So Granny and Grandpa tie him up, put him in the catapult, and launch him into the swamps. Except it wasn't somebody trying to rob our house there, was it, Granny? Who was it that you launched into the swamps?
Look, Joe, in my defense, not only was he wearing a mask, I don't know if it's because it was cold outside or not, but he had on a jacket, a red and blue jacket. That's very suspicious there, Joe.
That's right. That was the driver for Uncle Molasses. He was going to drive him here to our house and then take him back home. I gotta tell you folks at home that the search party still hasn't found him. Well, they at least found his red and blue jacket and some fur that they couldn't identify.
Oh, they're a bunch of idiots. I knew where that fur came from. It came from experiment number 7. Or as I call him, Little Timmy.
Now which one is that, Granny? Which one is Little Timmy?
Well, you remember that time I went to the pet store and I was trying to beat everybody on the flash sale, but it turns out that wasn't a pet store. It was some top secret government agency. Yeah, that's where I got him.
Granny, all of your pets have come from some type of top research place. You gotta be a bit more specific here.
Let me see here. Oh yeah, you remember that big ball of fur I brought home that time and We didn't know what it was, but then he stood up a few days later. He's like 8 feet tall. That's little Timmy.
Oh, that's good to hear. Well, after Grandpa and Granny done launched that guy into the swamp, here comes Uncle Molasses, and he's starting in on Granny again. So old Granny and Grandpa throw him into his car, and Granny gets inside the car and starts driving around. Well, Granny, needless to say, is banned in about 24 states from driving, but that doesn't stop her from driving anyway, wrecking it to all these cars, aren't you, Granny? You taking Uncle Molasses for a joyride and you keep hitting all these cars and other vehicles, aren't you, Granny?
In my defense, I am the underground bumper car champion. I gotta keep my skills up, Joe.
Well, somehow Granny's keeping that vehicle rolling as she's driving and driving, and finally she plows right through the house of the mayor. And of course she hits a gas pipe, which causes an explosion and a fire to erupt throughout the house.
In my defense, if I knew that gas pipe was there, I would have swerved and missed it. I wouldn't have hit it.
Granny, you should have been driving in the first place. Now somehow Granny gets out and she just walks away from it all, which leaves Uncle Molasses in the car. Now I guess he stumbled his way inside and got over on the driver's seat, because by the time the police showed up, they see him in there. And then they realize that he's drunk. So now Uncle Molasses is in jail simply because of what Granny did. And Granny, where exactly did you go after you left that crime scene?
To the bowling alley.
To the bowling alley. Except it wasn't the bowling alley, was it, Granny? You went to a construction site that was on the hospital grounds, didn't you?
It was strikes all day, baby.
That's right. Somehow Granny got in that little machine that's got the wrecking ball, and she went and took out the entire left wing of the hospital. Thankfully, somebody in the orange vest comes out and gets her out of there, and he climbs inside the machine. Well, for some reason, this entire time, nobody saw Granny within that machine. So whenever the police arrive there, now they find that guy in there, and now some random person is in jail for taking out the entirety of the west wing of the hospital. That's exactly what you did, though, wasn't it, Granny? You took out the west wing of the hospital.
I rolled a perfect score.
Well, thanks to all of Granny's exploits, we got 2 people in jail for who knows how long because of what she's done. And now we're left with the dog of Uncle Molasses. Granny, we gotta find some way to get rid of that dog. I really don't know what we're gonna do with that dog.
I have an idea, Joe. You remember asking why we haven't seen that old man walking his dog here recently? Well, it turns out little Timmy has developed a taste for dog meat. Now don't ask me how I know. Rumors. I've heard them, okay? But, what if we fed the dog to little Timmy?
Well, Granny, I don't really want to feed that dog to your pet. I just don't think that that would be right.
Hey, Joe, I know we can get rid of that dog. You see, little Timmy likes dogs, and, I think he gets lonely. He misses his mama. So, what if we let him have the dog? I think he'll take real good care of it.
Now, Granny, you promise that little Timmy will take real good care of that dog?
Oh yeah, sure. With the barbecue sauce.
Okay.